All right, let's dive into this explainer and tackle a reality that is deeply relatable and, frankly, totally exhausting. You know what I'm talking about, the daily homework battle. If you have ever found yourself acting as a project manager, a personal assistant, and an emotional support coach all at the exact same time just to get your kid through a single math worksheet, well, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're exploring a brilliant framework on how to build actual homework independence without that constant hovering supervision.
So, here is our roadmap for this session. 1. The homework trap. 2. Support versus control. 3. The 5-level ladder. 4. Precise help seeking. 5. Safe mistakes. And finally, we'll wrap up with a 7-day experiment to put it all together. We are going to map out a really clear step-by-step journey from constant supervision to confident student independence.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the homework trap, and why sudden withdrawal just straight up fails.
Okay, picture this scene. You're sitting right beside your child for an entire homework session. You read the instructions, you gather up the materials, you decide which task they should do first, and you expertly spot every single mistake before their pencil even lifts off the paper. They finish the work. Great. But then, the next evening, you decide to step away. You tell them, hey, you need to do this on your own tonight. And literally nothing happens. The child completely stalls out. We have all felt that exact frustration, wondering, why can't you just be independent?
And this perfectly illustrates our core paradigm shift for today. You see, independence isn't created by suddenly withdrawing your help. Doing that is like removing the scaffolding before the building can even stand on its own. A child who has spent months perfectly practicing how to follow your step-by-step directions hasn't actually practiced planning, starting, or monitoring their own work. True independence develops through a gradual transfer of responsibility in small, really carefully planned steps.
We often talk about independence as if it's just this single personality trait, right? Like you either have it or you don't. But in reality, it's a checklist of highly specific, learnable micro skills. For example, a child might be absolutely amazing at solving complex math equations independently, but then completely forget to actually hit the submit button. Or they might know exactly how to estimate the effort needed to beat a video game level, but become entirely overwhelmed trying to estimate how long reading a science chapter will take. Recognizing these as individual micro skills is incredibly freeing, honestly, because it means we can teach them one by one.
Moving right along to Section 2, Support versus Control, and how shifting our language changes everything.
There is a massive, vital difference between controlling the homework session and supporting it. Control sounds like, start with math, or give me the assignment, I'll check every answer. Now sure, control might produce a beautifully clean A+ assignment tonight, but it teaches the child to just sit there and wait for your direction and your approval before making a move. Support, on the other hand, shifts the heavy lifting, the thinking, back to the child. It sounds more like, what is your first step? Or, show me where you became confused. Support allows for appropriate mistakes and actual problem solving. It preserves the child's role as the person who is actually responsible for the work.
So, before you jump in and rescue your child, I want you to pause. Just take a breath and ask yourself, what is the smallest amount of support that would allow them to take the next step? If a child asks, what do I write? Don't dictate the sentence for them. Instead, ask, well, what information do you already have? The minimum effective help might just be pointing to a checklist, clarifying a single confusing word, setting a 10-minute timer, or honestly, just sitting nearby without saying a word. We want to avoid replacing the child's thinking when a simple prompt would do the trick.
All right, on to Section 3, the 5-level ladder. This is the core framework for that journey of transformation.
This 5-level ladder shows how the parent literally steps further back at each rung. Level 1 is do it together. You prepare the materials and do the first step side by side. This is perfect for brand new routines. Level 2 is guide, then step back, where you help them identify the first task and then they work independently for a short burst. By Level 3, you move to schedule check-ins. Level 4 is a child-led review, where they complete the whole routine and just report back to you on what's done and where they might need a little help. Finally, Level 5 is true independent management. And keep in mind, this isn't a strict one-way street. Kids are going to move up and down these levels depending on how tired they are, how tough the subject is, or just their current developmental stage.
That brings us to Section 4, Teaching Precise Help Seeking. Here's the thing. Independence does not mean never needing assistance. The actual skill is knowing when and how to ask for it. So, instead of a child just shouting for you after every single difficult question, we need to actively teach them this specific sequence. First, read the instruction again. Second, look at an example. Third,
Try just one reasonable step on your own. If they are still stuck after that, they mark the question and then move to step 4, asking for specific help. Teaching this sequence stops them from just throwing their hands up and freezing at the very first sign of difficulty.
And when they do ask for help, this right here is the absolute gold standard we are looking for. I understand the first part, but I do not know how to begin the second step. We want to explicitly praise precise help-seeking language like this. Contrast that with just yelling, "I can't do any of it." Asking for appropriate, targeted help is actually a highly mature form of independence. It's for sure not a failure of it.
Which leads us nicely into Section 5, allowing safe, proportionate mistakes.
Continuous supervision basically makes both you and your child completely dependent on immediate feedback. By replacing our constant hovering presence with predictable, scheduled check-in points, we change the dynamic entirely. Try saying, "Work on the first 4 problems, and I will return in 15 minutes. The child knows support is coming, so they don't panic, but their attention isn't being constantly interrupted by a parent pointing out a missing comma every 3 minutes. When you do check in and you inevitably spot an error, you have to remember this. The whole purpose of a mistake is learning, not punishment. Independence requires the opportunity to experience manageable consequences. Maybe they start late and realize they have less free time before bed. Maybe they submit an assignment that isn't completely flawless. If we adults swoop in and correct every single tiny mistake before the child even notices it, the child is stripped of the vital information they actually need to improve their own future planning.
This highlights a bunch of common traps we fall into as parents. We've talked about sudden withdrawal and correcting every small error, but honestly, the most tempting trap is rewriting their work to protect their grades. It is incredibly tempting to heavily edit that essay so they get an A. But doing this, it ultimately communicates a profound lack of trust in their abilities. It secretly tells them their unpolished effort just isn't good enough. We absolutely have to be okay with safe, proportionate mistakes.
Okay, finally, Section 6, the 7-day experiment. Let's talk about putting all of this into practice.
The absolute golden rule here is so simple but so important. Choose one homework responsibility to transfer. Do not try to transfer the entire routine tonight. The goal is stable growth, not rapid withdrawal. Pick just one small micro skill. Maybe starting today, their only new independent job is packing their school bag when they finish. Or maybe it's just setting the start timer. That's it. Just one thing.
And while they practice that one skill, use a daily observation record to track their progress over the week. Pay special attention to that middle column, parent rescued early. Did you step in before you really needed to? Observing this for 7 days gives you real, concrete data to help you decide if they are ready for a new responsibility next week or if you actually need to temporarily increase your support.
Now, this is a vital caveat. It is so important to remember that independence shouldn't be demanded based on a child's age or by comparing them to their classmates or siblings. Some children, especially those with ADHD, working memory weaknesses, or learning differences, they need much more explicit and longer-lasting scaffolding. You always have to build from your child's actual, current functional level.
Ultimately, this mindset shift is profound. Homework independence doesn't start when you leave the room. It begins the exact moment your child starts carrying just one single part of the process entirely on their own. You are transitioning your role from a micromanaging director to a supportive coach.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final empowering thought to completely reframe your mindset tonight. I want you to stop asking, how can I make my child do everything alone? And instead ask yourself, what is the next responsibility my child is ready to practice? Because when you stop being their manager and start being their coach, you might be totally surprised by how high they can climb. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.